Okay.
Okay, just to give a brief background, Samir and myself will be doing a presentation in September at a conference that happens internationally every year, and it just happens to be in the UK in Oxford this year. And we're going to be it's a conference. It's all about the transpersonal. So there'll be a lot of transpersonal therapists. I think some of it's probably be quite academic, um, but we won't be academic. And so we've worked out this presentation, which should be 20 minutes. Um, Obviously, just to say, some of you might know a lot of it because we'll be presenting to an audience that won't know about us, but also might not know really about Kundalini or spiritual awakening. So the way we're doing is the first part of this talk. I'm sort of setting the scene, so I'll be giving some brief information about who we are, history, what is spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, and the challenges that people might face going through a Kundalini awakening. And then in more detail, Samir is going to flesh out the ethos of the collective, how we support people, what's happening with spontaneous awakenings, which don't fit into any traditional model. And then Samir will be addressing the title, our online peer-to-peer communities, the new Guru. So I'll set the scene. And just say technically, obviously when we're doing, whoever's talking will have the slide button, but Samir's got the slide button. So my bit I'm sure he's very good at it, but it could be a bit clunky. So you have to bear with us on that one. Okay, Samir, the next slide, please. Okay, so who are we? We're based in the UK. We are a peer support group for people going through Kundalini and other spiritual awakenings. We have over 500 members. Obviously, not everyone is active. There are people from all walks of life. There are a wide range of ages. There do seem to be quite a few professional people and people who are training or practicing as therapists. We haven't researched, and perhaps we should do in the future, ethnic makeup and so forth. We're international. English is the dominant language, so the majority of people are from the UK, Ireland, and also quite a considerable amount of people from the States or Canada, the rest of Europe and Australia. And interestingly, just recently, Samir's made contact with a new group in South Korea. And we're very keen to collaborate and support other initiatives like this around the world. So that will be interesting. Even though we do face-to-face meetups, and that's how we started, which I'll talk about in a second, we're essentially an online community connecting through sharing through the website. So using the website as a resource for community and sharing, and through the Zoom groups. So this Zoom group and the monthly support group. Next slide, please. This, as you probably will all recognize, is the website which Samir designed. So Samir and myself met at a meeting in London in 2017, and this is supposedly a support meeting for people going through Kundalini awakening. The guy that did it was quite a charming sort of guy, but the groups weren't done particularly well. They weren't really constant. They weren't every month. They were a bit haphazard, and we thought we could maybe do something better ourselves. At that time, or in 2018, both myself and Samir had contact with Bonnie Greenwell, who some of you might know. She sadly died a year or two ago, but she was a very experienced, very grounded therapist in Kundalini, and she supported many people worldwide. And those that she was supporting from the UK, she asked if they might want to meet up face to face. And through that connection, in 2018, I think it was early summer, I can't remember exactly, but we met for the first time. There's about 5 of us, and these face-to-face meetups are always very informal, very natural. And so we went for a pizza. So that's how it started. We then, that slowly built up, more people came, and then we went online, which obviously gave it greater potential to reach people, not just from people that could get to London, but more widely in the UK, Ireland, the States, and so forth. And the growth has been very organic, not really planned as such. So the membership's organically grown, and so have the services. So the Zooms were every 6 weeks or so, but then they became monthly, and then the resources were built up. A website. We also went on to do podcasts, which have been very successful on YouTube. And the other organic thing is that we always have wanted this to be a true collective. There's no hierarchy. We all have the opportunity to contribute, and so over time that involvement has really grown. So there's a number of people that actually contribute. So, for instance, there's Joe here who initiated these groups, and we. So we want that to continue, really. So basically, this can run without either Samir or myself. So it's all been organic. Next slide, please. So what is Kundalini? What is spiritual awakening? So this is obviously a huge and controversial subject in its own right. So I'm just going to give a very brief subjective view. So my view of spiritual awakening is a life-changing shift in the perception of reality when a person experiences, it's experiential, and that's key, the unity of existence, and that they realize they are more than the constructive self. So, or in Buddhist terms, the self is a dependent arising. We only exist, the self, as interaction with the world around us. So that's I see as spiritual awakening. And then next slide, please, Samir. Looking at Kundalini awakening specifically, I'm sure you've all seen diagrams like this. Kundalini this is a Indian paradigm. It's the Indian system has been around for thousands of years, and it's a very complicated scientific system. You can see those energy channels on the diagram. Those are, in a way, the main channels, but in their system, there are literally thousands of these nadis, these energy lines. Kundalini is an Indian term. It means coiled, and it refers to the female aspect of the life force, but it's coiled. So in this system, this female energy, or Shakti is the word, after being instrumental in creating life, it lies dormant at the base chakra. However, traditionally in this Indian system, it can be activated through years of intense spiritual practice, and that would normally be in an ashram with a guru. But also, it can be triggered through trauma or grace, blessing of a guru, Shakti pat, where the energy is transferred. And there are seemingly an increasing amount of spontaneous awakenings, which Samir will talk about in more detail later on. When this energy is being activated, there is a process that begins. The process works to clear the self, so clear the trauma and the societal conditioning, and moves the individual close to the greatest self and oneness. And also it works to, in a way, enable us to be who we truly are. So it's in the idea of an old cassette tape, it sort of cleans the tape so we can be in tune with who we really are. Everyone's experience is unique, but there are common symptoms. One of the most common symptoms, sorry to say, you jumped ahead. Can we go back? One of the most common symptoms is obviously energy. People experience the energy coming up the backbone, coming middle normally. More commonly, it's bottom up, but it can also be top down. And when the energy is activated, people can have visions, can hear sounds such as bees or celestial flute music and so forth. And the idea is, as it rises, the idea is it clears the chakras. So ultimately, it comes right up through the crown chakra. And some people may have an intense experience, and for some people, it may be much slower over time. And with this also comes physical. For some people, will have physical aspects. So this can be pain from trapped energy. It can be kriyas, hand movements, or mudras, which again, involuntary movements, which are sort of spiritual yoga positions, as far as I understand. So it's unique. Everyone's unique, but there are those common symptoms. And the next slide, please, Samir. There are other ways of looking at this. The Indian system is just one system. And also in Indian terms, spiritual awakenings are not true Kundalini awakenings, as people have not done years of work, normally in an ashram with a guru, and they're not supported by a guru. So in Indian terms, this shouldn't actually be happening. Also, the energy is seen in other cultures and systems. So you can look at the Holy Spirit being perhaps Kundalini, and also Christian groups such as the Shakers and Quakers, that suggests there's a similar, at least a prana, a similar energy being triggered. And again, in shamanic systems and hermetic systems, you'll find the same energy. And I'm going to finish off, I was actually not of this section, with just a quote about, there's a book called Shamanic Voices, which is a collection of shamans telling their stories. And very briefly, an African Kung shaman talks of Num, which he says is an energy, a kind of supernatural potency, whose activation paves the way for curing. And a Sioux, an Native American shaman, says, we Sioux believe there is something within us that controls us, something like a second person almost. We call it Naji, what other people might call soul, spirit, or essence. One can't see it or taste it, but that time on the hill, this is when he was going through his initiation. And that once only, I knew it was there inside me. Then I felt the power surge through me like a flood. I cannot describe it, but it filled all of me. I now knew I was going to be a shaman. Next slide, please, Samir. And this is my final slide. So this process is ultimately positive. It really helps us to be who we are. It's a clearing and healing process, but there can be many challenges that people face through these awakenings. So for some people have a very intense awakening, and for those in the short term, there can be a sense of dying, which is in essence a partial ego death. And a person may be unable to function for a time when the energy first rises, so might find it hard to look after themselves. And then if they come under the clutch of mental health services, that's a double whammy negative, because they can get a diagnosis of psychosis, and treatment by mental health services can be quite traumatic. There can be extreme anxiety and fear. And Samir?
This is your next slide.
Yep. So it's short, medium. So this is more in the medium, longer term. Okay. So there's, as I said, this anxiety and fear. Also, very, very commonly, a sense of isolation. Can be brain fog, lack of validation, extreme fatigue, which especially seems to affect women. There is some bad information on the internet which people can make people feel scared. There's ongoing challenges of facing our trauma and psychological issues which we need to process. There can be, as I mentioned before, there can be physical pain from energy blockages as well. And people might not be able to work for a period, especially for a few months at the beginning. And for a few people, in a way, can get to a stage where they think they're through the process, but they're not, and can have sort of illusions of grandeur. And just to finish off my section, recently we've started a survey, which is on the website under more. And I think we've had between 30 and 40 replies so far. And Samir, being a real techno whiz, which I'm not, has put the results so far through AI. And AI has shown these themes, which are the main things coming out of the survey. Isolation and misunderstanding. Feelings of isolation and being misunderstood are common, especially when those around the individual are not familiar with Kundalini. This underscores the need for community and peer support to combat loneliness. It also mentions the physical and mental health issues, and it suggests there needs to be an integrated care approach that addresses both body and mind, and also goes on to integration difficulties. Integrating into daily life can be difficult, leading to strained relationships and identity shifts. And this highlights the importance of having practical guidance and support for navigating these kind of changes. So those are some of the challenges, and Samir will take it from here.
Hi. So carrying on from Alan, we're going to look at the ethos of the Kundalini Collective. So the first thing is we like to think that we're ordinary people. A lot of people who join us haven't come from a spiritual background, so they might live normal lives, might live in cities. And a lot of people who come to us don't have a background in Kundalini, may not even know much about it. The next thing is that we're a peer-to-peer group, and I think this is quite important. We don't look at ourselves as a group with a hierarchy, or we treat everyone as equal. Our approach is that we're a guide to one another. We like to think that people can use the site to find their own journey through the awakening process. We also like to think that ideally, if someone can do that, they won't need to project out a guru to somebody else, that they have agency over their own process. We're not against gurus or teachers, but we like to think that everyone has a guru within themselves, and with the right tools can unlock that guru inside themselves. So the other thing we like to talk about is that we are a collective. We like to collaborate. So one example is when we do podcasts, we don't just invite what we call an expert in inverted commas. We invite our members. For example, in a few weeks, we're going to release a podcast we did with Nigel, who's part of the who's actually on the call now. And Nigel's an ordinary bloke who lives in Putney, and that's the ethos, that we're just normal people doing normal things, and we happen to have this extraordinary experience. We like to think that we treat all systems the same, and by systems I mean be it an Eastern system, be it a tantric system, be it a shamanic system. We like to look at all of these as equal. So we're not trying to elevate necessarily Kundalini or Hindu Tantra or Buddhist Tantra over another, although we are called the Kundalini Collective. There is a kind of question where is Kundalini the right word? One of the things we like to do is make sure that everyone feels that this is a safe space. So we have a code of conduct, and one of the things that the code of conduct states is asking people to write their perspectives on Kundalini in the forum, but not as an objective truth. So they might say, in my opinion, or I believe, and we hope that that creates a safe space for people to feel that their perspective is as equal as somebody else's. So the idea about information, we believe that sharing your experience is information. So it's an experiential process. And for that reason, the more information that's on the site, the better it is, the more it is a library of resources. Okay, so next, why technology is helpful. Well, the obvious first idea is at the basic level, the internet is a place that people who could not normally meet physically can meet. And obviously, with spiritual awakening and the very few people in the world comparatively that are going through it, the most obvious feature of a community online is that we can get people to meet who could not normally meet. We believe in the wisdom of crowds. So the idea is we crowdsource information. The more information that comes from various people from all over the world that goes on the site, it creates a library of information with people who have had different experiences and creates that kind of sense that there's something global happening. And we're looking at information, and technology is a cheap way to access and disseminate information. And perhaps you could say that in the past, mystical schools or secret schools or wisdom schools, the information was secret. It was passed from guru to pupil. What we try and do is democratize that information, make it freely available to everybody, and we're trying to increase the amount of information on the site. And we started to do this recently, collate information. So we did a survey recently, and the survey's live. It's going to be live forever, so you can access it. And the more information we get, either from the survey, from our own Zooms, from meetups, from the website, is information that we can bring. We can actually use technology to start finding patterns of what's going on, and is there something new happening? And again, with the problem with having more and more data is that then you need someone or something to curate that data, so to navigate through the data. So I'm pretty into AI. I've been using AI to sort through the amount of data that we're beginning to get, and I'm finding it very useful. And in the future, with more information online about this process, I'm sure that people will be using AI as everyday tools to navigate their journey. Okay, so next stage, what have we found? So, I mean, I feel, and I think Alan supports this idea, that something new is happening. I call this post-New Age. I even use the word post-spiritual, but that might be controversial. I think I think we're finding that this is not the traditional Kundalini awakening, nor is it a traditional shamanic awakening. What's going on in the world seems to be something that is new and probably purposeful. And all we can do is analyze the data and talk to people and begin to figure out what's going on. It's global and cross-cultural, so it transcends any one culture. As Adam mentioned earlier on, we've just got in touch with a group from South Korea, and they have their own take, which combines their shamanic Korean take and their Christian background. So it's very interesting, and I think every culture will have their own take on this. Again, what's new, as Alan mentioned before, this is spontaneous. It doesn't need a background in spiritual practice. So again, I know this could be evolutionary. Rather than being in the word spiritual, spiritual might have to be reframed to encompass something new. Trauma seems to be a key ingredient, both as a trigger for awakening as well as something that is released after an awakening. A lot of people find that repressed trauma is spontaneously released or after an awakening. And many people we meet seem to move from an awakening process to doing something new. So we call this the relationship between inner and outer work. For example, people tend to change their lives, change their jobs. Many people become therapists. People get involved in activism. And there's an interesting shift in people's careers and their life's purpose. Okay, so I'm going to look at what we found that's helping people, and this includes results from our survey. So the pillars of support, one of the things that, if it's possible to help people, and it seems to be the most important, is having close family and friends who actually support people through this process, although that doesn't happen to all people. And in fact, many people don't have family and friends to help them. But if they do, that's very, very helpful. It validates the process. And that's where we come in. So obviously, most people don't have a family or a set of friends that can help them. And so community peer-to-peer support groups becomes that family or that group or the community that helps people. It validates their experience, it gives them information, points in the right direction. People find that spiritual and therapeutic practices help. Now, this could be Qigong, yoga, meditation. It could be some kind of prayer. It could be walking in nature. However, the reverse is true. Some people that have very extreme awakenings need to ground themselves and reduce their spiritual practice. And lastly, information education, which is again something that we can at least point people in direction to. People seem to need, obviously, information, education. There's a lot of information out there. I wonder whether there's enough education out there. Okay, so the question is peer-to-peer, is a peer-to-peer online community the new guru? And our answer is no and yes, so I would say maybe. So we do believe that everyone can be their own guru. And so in that respect, a peer-to-peer support group isn't a guru. And I think, although many people feel they might need a teacher or a guru, I think the new awakening process is almost asking people to face that fear of needing that projected leader or teacher. I think it's asking people to go a bit deeper. That's my own personal opinion. However, yes, in a way, a peer-to-peer community can help people navigate through their awakening. So at best, we could look at it as a mirror that reflects the guru inside that person. So within the new technological space that's coming to us, whether it's AI, whether it's virtual reality, we're going to have technology that will help people guide themselves through an awakening process. And I think this is interesting. And I think there's a synergy between the growing fact that people around the world are having spontaneous awakenings and access to technology. Now, one last thing I might say is that if, like myself and Alan, you believe that this world is an interconnected world of energy and that we're awakening not just materialistically or in a material body, but energetically, the internet is mirroring this energetic connection between all of us. And so in a way, if you have that connection to that interconnected energy, using technology and the internet as probably a way that we are navigating through our awakening process using these tools. And I think that is part of our evolutionary process. So what I'll probably say is that we are our own gurus, and that technology is a tool for us to find that guru within. Anyway, so that's where we end our presentation. Thank you for listening. Yeah, cheers.